Hello and welcome back everybody to a very special video this time. If you read the title, you know that this is going to be my very first traditional non-digital painting that I've done in over 5 years. Might have been like 6 or 7 even, because I have been doing digital only for quite a while now. I used to do acrylics and watercolors a lot before I started doing comics, and when I was doing my first comic, a rental stream, I was still painting traditionally every now and then, because with that one I was inking the pages traditionally and scan them in and color them in Photoshop, and that kind of gave me a craving to every now and then also illustrate things just on paper the old-timey way. But when I started my current comic, Stand Still, Stay Silent, I obviously do that one completely digitally, sketching, line arting and coloring. So eventually, or not even eventually, immediately when I started doing that, I stopped doing any traditional art. The kind of the wall, or like the hump to dig them out, got just higher and higher, like setting up a space to paint and taking out my tools and everything. It just seemed to become more and more difficult to even want to do when digital was so simple, it doesn't require any cleaning or trying to not ruin my sofas. Because I have white sofas, and I am not I know from past experience that I am not a necessarily clean painter. I usually get some paint on my face, on my clothes, which is why in the video you see that I am wearing a dirty tracksuit or the jacket for one. It has like house paint on it. I use it when I need to do something that I know I'm going to ruin my clothes doing. So yeah, that's one of the reasons I haven't been painting. Also, the fear of ruining my furnitures or walls at home. When I still lived with my parents when I was in university, I didn't really care that much. It wasn't my walls, nor was it my furniture, and I ruined my parents' my room, but obviously it's my parents' room. They had to change the floor and paint the walls after me. There were so many ink stains and paint stains, I suppose. So yeah, suddenly when you own your own home, you start caring about not getting paint on everything. But now that I have my studio, I am actually excited to paint traditionally every now and then. Like, I've been just waiting to get to try this out. It's not even close to being finished, my studio space. I just have like the table set up and a few lights, but everything else still looks like not a war zone, but a construction site. I have no really shelving or things put together quite yet. It's looking pretty nice, but yeah, it's very much still a work in progress. But I was able to paint a little bit on my table, and I couldn't wait anymore. I wanted to try out these gouaches that I bought. As you can see, I bought a set with just primary colors. Primary colors. Cyan, magenta, and yellow, and black and white. And I decided to try color mixing. And by the way, right now in the painting is the part where I kinda lost the direction I was going into. I had a reference picture of like a flower with colors that I wanted to aim for, which were light pinks and light blues and slight yellow in the background, like a warm sunlight. And yeah, I do not really have any proper experience with gouache. I've just heard that it's like a mix between acrylics and watercolors, and I figured, hey, since I have a lot of experience with both watercolors and acrylics, gouache must be really easy to pick up. Turned out that it was horrible in the beginning because you can't use it like watercolors and you cannot use it like acrylics. I realized after I had laid down a dark colored sketch, like plotted out the darkest parts of the painting, that I would not be able to make a transparent glaze over it the way I would have done with watercolors or acrylics, because with those, once it's dry you can paint over it and the layer beneath won't mess up whatever you paint on top of it. But with gouache, once it's dry, it doesn't stay dry. It starts smearing around if you paint over it. So you can really do glazing, which is like a thin transparent layer of color. So yeah, I realized that I could not do the dark shadows and then a transparent light glow on top of it. I had to do something else. I had to basically use them in thick covering layers rather than building up thin layers. I have to actually mix the colors I want on the palette and use them as thick as I can, and it was difficult. I had to abandon the color reference that I was trying to go for because yeah, it was I did not trust my skills to try to achieve the kind of delicate pinks and blues that were in it. I just decided to let the paint take me where it takes me. At the moment I was almost ready to scrap the painting and start over because it was really not looking like anything I wanted it to look like, but I pushed through with it. I figured I will be able to make it into something at least, and you know, it would be a pity to not show the first painting and pretend like, oh, my first attempt was totally easy and fine. But no, it was difficult, but in a fun way. It was definitely a experience, and you know, I figured my biggest problem would be missing the undo button and stuff like that, but turned out that I did not miss the undo button at all, ever. What I had most problems with was actually water control, with the paints drying too fast, both on the palette and on my brush, and you know, on the opposite end, having too much water, and you know, that would be an annoyance, which is of course not something you have to deal with digital painting. So that turned out to be my biggest struggle with it, and yeah, it took a little bit of time to really get used to it again. Oh, and also color mixing turned out to be also really difficult. Another thing you don't need to worry about too much in digital painting. But yeah, it was just I feel like in the future I will have to mix larger amounts of the paints or the colors that I want to use at the time. I made a mistake of doing really tiny little splotches of the color I needed, and then I would have to try remixing it again, and then I would get a slightly different color, and I would be annoyed with it, and the painting would shift in tone again. But yeah, it was lots of fun, and I did kind of get the hang of everything, or not everything, but more of the process again towards the end. I suppose it's one of those things where It's like riding a bike. That's the one that you use as an example, where you remember it pretty well after a little while. And this was, I definitely started to remember a little bit more about traditional painting after about an hour or so. I think this whole thing took me 2 hours. Yeah, that's was the length of my file. By the way, I am very happy that I was able to film this on my phone. I was worried that I would have to buy a proper camera that it costs like several €100, and yeah, I didn't really want to do that because I don't really film or use a camera otherwise, and it turned out my phone is good enough. It's yeah, it's looking pretty good as far as at least for what I need. I don't need 4K footage of my little mini paintings. Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing more of this in the future. It was actually easier to record than digital painting recordings for some reason. I was less self-conscious about the fact that I was recording. For some reason, when I record digitally, I keep thinking about it, or I notice every time I take a break to think like, oh no, the footage is running and I'm not doing anything on the canvas. It's gonna look really stupid in the recording. I'm gonna have to either cut it out or there's gonna be a big blob of just nothing happening. But with traditional, I feel like I didn't really think about the recording at all. Even though it was literally next to my head, like next to my eyes, the camera stuck on a little tripod thingy. But it was decently pleasant. Oh, at this point I decided to go just crazy with the colors. Just go dark instead of soft and cute. The colors are actually looking nicer on the... now that I'm looking at the recording than they were when I was painting them. Like, they don't look half bad now. But at this stage I was still really anguishing about the colors in real life. The camera makes them look better! Or maybe because I am a couple hours removed from it now. I'm not feeling the pressure anymore of actually making it look good. But yeah, you can see I started to go really dark, or way darker than I was going in the beginning. A big problem I had was, I don't know if it's just me not being good at mixing gouache colors properly yet, or if it is a limitation of the pigments, but trying to mix a really vibrant light yellow or like a pink for the lighting was it felt really muddy. Like I felt like it was turning grey, even though I made sure to wash my brush really well to not get any of the blue or blacks into it. It still looked grey, like it felt really annoying. So the light source just looked muddy, which is why I started going darker. I decided that if I can't get the light source looking vibrant by just mixing the colors as light as I can, then I'm just gonna make the shadows darker, get the lights looking lighter that way. But yeah, I do not yet know if that's just a gouache thing that you can't get as vibrant lights. I feel like you must get, like I've seen people make fantastic glowy looking paintings in gouache. It's just me. But I know I can get the colors I want with watercolors. I think the next one is gonna be watercolors, because I have my old set still left, and yeah, those used to be my proper stomping grounds. gonna be fun to see if I can remember how to have proper water control and everything with those. I might have to... maybe I'll film my first attempt instead of doing a few practices on my own. It would be fun to see me struggle, hopefully. I like seeing other artists struggle, makes me feel better. It's always a little bit intimidating when other artists just show their best performances, the flawless kinda finessed cut versions of their processes. It makes me feel like I'm not confident enough in my ways of painting. But then it's always nice to see when, you know, the masters, or the ones that I consider masters, also struggle every now and then. What do you say? Shared pain is... Wait, double the pain? No, half the pain. Yeah. Shared pain is half the pain. I think that's a saying. Jaettu tuska, puolituska? No, I don't think that's a saying. Maybe it's just something I feel strongly. It's nice to have other people suffering, okay? Oh, what else was I going to say? I feel like I had the list of things I was going to talk about in this video, but it's almost over. It's fine, it must not have been anything too important, since I'm sure I would have remembered it if it was. But yeah, it's getting close to being done, and it's actually looking pretty nice, even though the colors are not what I was going for originally. But still, and you know, that's fine, obviously. If a painting isn't going in the direction you wanted it to go, just very often, at least for me, if I just keep going, eventually it starts looking good. Very often with my comic pages, I hate them up until the last 5% of the process. Then I look at them and go, oh, it's not too bad. It's not the worst page in my life that I've ever done. So I always know that if I just keep pushing, it's very rare that the end result is just a complete disaster. It might not be the greatest thing in the world, but it's gonna be something. At least I didn't just give up on it in the horrible, ugly stage. Which is like usually starts right after the sketch. You sketch it and then you try to make it look good, and suddenly it looks like you have no idea how to draw or paint anything. And then you start, where I start at least, always kind of second guessing my own skills, like, oh man, do I actually know how to paint? Because I can't remember what to do in this situation. But then it slowly just comes back to me, I guess. Well, not even, it just kinda like a little boat in a river eventually kinda gets closer to a shore, and then you can row over there. As long as you don't just give up. How would you give up in a rowing boat? I guess if you just jumped out of it and decided to die. That was a horrible analogy. But yeah, we're done with this painting, and yeah, there we go. It is my first painting in over 5 years, and I am very excited to do more of these. I think the next one is going to be a watercolor. I'm very much looking forward to it. And yeah, thank you all for watching, and links to my comic and social medias and everything is in the description, and I will see you guys next time. Alright, bye bye!